Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you to the Canadian Society. Thank you to you for coming this evening and for your interest in existential issues, which are basic in our life. So I'm looking forward to a really great evening, and I'm happy that I can be there, and that I'm already a bit adjusted to the jet lag, or overcame the jet lag, since I'm here almost since a week. And I like these Vancouver sunny days with the colored leaves on the trees, which is so Canadian. We have them also, but not so big and not so colorful than you have. Yeah. By the way, you can have some more English literature on my homepage. I have an English section with some papers more than in the book, or some translations of articles which appeared in German, if you're interested. Well, our theme, and Teresa said that if you do the training, then you can be as I am. I hope you will speak a better English than I do. Okay, let's step into the intro part of this evening. I thought to give you first a short glimpse on the approach, on the existential approach through which we will work and see the themes, and then to give a short summary of what is meaning and what is grief and how grief works. And then we do the practical work, and we will see if that, what I am talking about, really applies to that situation which the person will bring up. I didn't know him before. I just met him right now, some minutes before we started here. So the interconnection between the theoretical part and the practical part is hypothetical, but we will see what will be the theme afterwards. Existential analysis is talking about existence. What is existence? Existence is a very philosophical term, and you should not shy away to use that word, or be shied away because of the use of that word. Existence means simply our way of being here in this world, how we live and act, and how we experience our life, how we make decisions. This is the interaction between me, myself, and the world around me. So this is a personal life. Me personally, how I live and how I feel, how I decide, this all belongs to existence. You may use the word life instead of existence. My life, how I live, this is how I exist. Of course, the term existence has connections to a broad background, which is not the theme of tonight, but which gives the idea. What I want to say is that to give you an idea that just being here is a very, very great thing, a very complex experience. There are many different layers and stories in our life, which we normally in our daily life are not conscious. But when we confront a deeper loss, a grief, or so, we become aware that existence is much more complicated than when we do just cooking or walking in the park. Existential analysis has to do with an analysis of what? Analysis of our life. But what is the concern of our work? We look around how this life, what are the conditions of this life? What do I need to really come to a fulfilling life? What do I need to overcome anxiety? What is helping to stabilize me? What is giving me a content in my life? So the conditions which lead to the completion of my of my life, finally of a life which has to undergo a death, which belongs to life, these conditions are in the center of the study. What do I need to be happy, to have a fulfilling life? You may ask yourself, what do I need? Do I really need more money, or do I need more health? This is all helpful, but there are other elements which are even more important. My own decision, my own perception, what do I need? What is lacking, for instance, to be happy right now? If we look at that situation superficially, we would say, well, more time, less difficulties in my professional life, etc. But in depth, these are not the real things which are lacking. To become, you may take the idea with you from this evening, maybe I'm happier than I think. Maybe I need less than I think to have a fulfilling life. Maybe my life is richer than I'm aware of. So just this view on, and in the knowledge that there is a depth in my existence, and that there is much more going on than I'm aware because I'm distracted by the everyday life. This helps to construct a broader life, a deeper life. Existential analysis, therefore, is a procedure which works mainly with the center, the essence of the human being, and that is called person. Me as a person, the one who says me within myself. This is the essence of my existence, the essence of my life. It's not my age, it's not my sex, it's not my welfare, it's not even health. The essence is that there is a me who decides who decides about one's life, my life, and who constructs a house of living, my existence. The truly human center, the person. And instead of person, we may say I or you, the person in the other. To mobilize this person, this means, for instance, that we don't simply ask, how is life going? Am I happy with my life? We ask much more we ask for the person, me personally in my life. So if I am content with myself in my life, if I'm content with what I do, how I decide, how I take my responsibility, then I put myself as a person in the center of my existence, in the center of my life. Then I live a more or truly personal life. Then I live in the feeling that life depends upon me. And that is so important. The outcome of life, that what really counts in one's life, is not what happens to me, the circumstance. No, but the outcome or the importance of my life is what I do with it, how I treat it, how I behave in it, how I decide. So happiness, true happiness in life, depends on me. When I'm not happy with myself, how can I be happy with my life, my circumstances? And so we say the essence of the human being, the me, the person, is really active when we activate this inner dialogue and find that what I do really corresponds to me. If that what I do corresponds to me, I feel and sense an inner yes to what I do. And this means to live with inner consent. The inner consent is this agreement, this harmonization with the situation, that I personally can say yes to my sitting here, to my reading a book, to my walking, to my facing a conflict. And then I'm standing behind myself and I'm present in my life. And this is so important, to become present in one's life. That I'm there, that I really came to the world, that I am taking part of this world with a constant inner connection, with a constant inner dialogue. So to live with inner consent to what I do or let be, this is the key to a fulfilling existence. When to become happy, to become fulfilled, to come to a whole life, we have no other way than to prepare ourselves and to direct ourselves to what we do and ask, do I really want to do that? Do I confirm? Do I consent? Do I agree? And if so, then I'm getting rewarded by life. Then I get something back because I am present and I can receive it. The founder of existential analysis was Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who lived in Vienna. He's famous for his book, especially in North America, Man's Search for Meaning. He described the philosophical concept of man, which forms a good part of our training. It is enlarged, of course, but it is laying on these fundaments. And he brought into psychology and psychotherapy the concept of meaning. He was the first who really concentrated on the value of meaning and the help which meaning can bring to avoid or overcome despair, emptiness in life. And he himself in his life is a monument for how one can find meaning even under the most difficult circumstances. Frankl lived for 2.5 years in concentration camps during World War II. As a Jewish person, he was incarcerated and lost almost all his family and most of his friends in concentration camp. With Frankl, we have the bridge to the term meaning, and I want to give now a short glimpse on what can be seen and what can be understood with meaning. Meaning is a question which everybody has or arises. It may arise in specific situations like, is it meaningful to go to this convention this evening? Does it have meaning? Or afterwards you may say it was meaningful or it didn't have meaning. It may arise in the question, or is it meaningful to continue my relationship, my work situation, etc. Is the existential form of meaning. Meaning may also arise in a more philosophical way, like what meaning does it have that I am on this earth, that I exist? Why am I here? What meaning have diseases? What meaning have earthquakes? What meaning have these things? This is another question of meaning. Let's look first to the practical form of meaning. The practical meaning helps us to find a direction to lead our life in the everyday situation. And we define meaning as being something possible, nothing where I'm forced to. Whatever I'm forced to is not experienced as meaningful. Meaning is something free, and me as a person, I need to develop as a person. This is possible only in situations where I feel free. So, existential meaning is called a possibility in a given situation. But not every possibility is meaningful. We are looking for the most valuable possibility in a given situation. Most valuable means it's a good possibility, a possibility where I feel it is interesting, it is attractive, it is important, it is necessary for something else. And if I, for instance, go and make my breakfast or my dinner, then and in the preparation of such a practical everyday thing, I do something which I'm not forced to. I could resist, or I could skip it. I could let it do others, or fasting. So I'm not forced. It's a possibility, but it's a value, and it's also a valuable possibility because it is tasty, it is relaxing, it is nourishing, and so it is a good possibility in a given situation. So most of these everyday things we do are meaningful. We are possibly not so aware of it because we are used to do it and we don't even think about it. But when we become difficulties, when our partners, when the children are blaming us because for this, what we do, then we don't see any more meaning to continue with that. So we then fall out of meaning, and when we fall out of a meaningful context, then we suffer from meaninglessness. When the relationship is no longer good, so why should I invest my time and be there and suffer? Has no more meaning. The meaning in such a situation is to work on something, on a good possibility. And a possibility is to talk, to have a dialogue, or even to go into couple therapy. These are good possibilities. This is meaningful action in such a case where I lose meaning, where I suffer from meaninglessness. And we have to change the situation, to work on it, so that we have again the feeling this is a good possibility, what I do. Existential meaning is that what I can do and has value. And I feel that it is good that I do. Existential meaning, therefore, gives me orientation in my daily life. And when I do not see meaning anymore, this means that something is wrong, something is lacking, either the value or the freedom. The direction in which I lead my life is no longer fulfilling, is no longer good. And then the signal shows up, which tells me, the psychological signal shows up and says me, stop, don't continue that way. This is a dead end way. This doesn't look like it leads to somewhere where it is good to go. Stop here, turn around, or change the situation. Existential meaning. That's the content of this meaning. The other meaning, the more philosophical meaning, the ontological meaning, is the meaning of being, the meaning of that what is there. What for am I on this earth, in this world? What for am I created? This is the question of for the one who made the things. So maybe God or evolution or whatever made this earth. Only he or the accident may know why this earth is and why I exist. I, as a human being, can't really know it. If I knew it, I knew the construction plan of God. Then I could say, oh, I know why I am existing. So our knowledge in this ontological dimension of meaning is restricted. Instead of personal knowledge and personal feeling of what it is going on, we have religion and philosophy. The religions are bound to this element, to this question of the human being. Why is it at all? Why is there at all a universe, an earth, and the human being? And why is there pain and suffering and death? This is all, belongs all to that level of what is given, what is there. So we can have some idea, and we can have religious answers, and we can even have a personal feeling that there must be something like something meaningful, something good with all this. But a clear knowledge, a proved knowledge, we don't have. This is no longer just a philosophical question, it is also a very existential question when we are asking, why do I have to lose my health when I get the cancer? Why me? Why do I have to lose a child or my partner when there are great losses? Then the question of meaning, the ontological question of meaning, becomes a very big one to everybody. We want to understand what happens. We want to see how it is connected to the world, to the other values, and we can't really understand. Here we are at the limit of our human understanding of the situations. We can try to understand. Maybe we have the grace that we can believe, but if not, a clear understanding and knowledge we don't have. We are not like God. We have a lower perspective. We can have a glimpse, an idea, but not more. And this was this question, which is the classical question for religion, and also a good, deep question in philosophy. This question was difficult in psychology, and people came to psychologists, psychotherapists, to counselors with this question. And until Frankl's work, the psychology didn't have an answer. They only could say, go to the priest, they can tell you more. And Frankl said, there is a part of the meaning question which can be treated psychologically, which does not necessarily belong to the priest. But there is another part where we cannot say more. The ontological question of meaning, this is really not the realm of psychology. But the existential part is a psychological question. And the ontological question, this why do I have to suffer? Why is there HIV? Why is there pain? Why do I have to undergo this loss? This question, we can give this question an existential turn. This is what Frankl brought into psychology, Frankl's key to existence. The existential turn consists in saying clearly, this big ontological question which is a religious and philosophical question, is a theme of hypothesis, of reflection, and of belief. This is not the theme of psychology. But the way how you deal with it, this is the psychological part in it. And this was what Frankl took out from the ontological question and was giving him it a turn so that it became graspable for the human being, so that we now can act practically on these big questions where we do not have the knowledge to answer. And so he said, the existential part of the ontological question of a great loss. Imagine a family who loses a child. Also, really great suffering. Probably the greatest suffering we can ever endure or undergo. If we have such a loss, then the existential part of it is saying, well, I do not know. Maybe I can believe that there is God, or the question of God behind, or maybe I lose my belief after such an experience, because how can God permit that this happens? So these are the religious questions, and we say existentially, I do not know. And there is nobody who knows. Not even a logotherapist knows it. And we must admit that. And we must admit this humbleness of the human being, because there are limitations we are forced to accept. We cannot step over. So this limitation is there. But the central question for the human being, which is touching the essence of the human being, the person, the one who decides, the one who understands, this me is touched, and I am asked by this. This fact challenges me, wants an answer from me. How do you deal with that? That is the existential impact on such a loss. Not that it happened. It happened and we don't know. And it happened, we cannot do anything. But how we deal with this situation, this is in our hands. This is what we have to take over. This means life. This means being present in my life. Life goes its way. We cannot determine life. We cannot force life. It happens. Our every day is a gift. We have no right on it. Hopefully we will get another day tomorrow. But within the day, it's up to us what we do with it, how we confront it, how we take it, how we understand it. And a basic understanding of existence is that we understand we are constantly questioned by life, asked, what are you going to do with it? And it is a very deep question in life when we are confronted with a loss, with conflicts, with difficulties, with problems. And every problem is a question to us and ask, what are you going to do with it? What can you do to change it to the better? How can you participate? How can you bring yourself in and connect yourself with that situation? This is the existential turn. Life means giving answers. My action is an answer. What I do is the answer to this actual situation. Being human means being questioned. I am in a constant dialogue with my surroundings, with my life. Everything which is there, which is given, and especially the difficulties, are asking me, how are you going to deal with it? You have a chance. You can. What is the best possibility you can see in dealing? And this is existential meaning. So Frankl's idea was to give this big, unresolvable question of the ontological meaning an existential turn and say, well, I respect the irresolvability of that question, but I see there is a part which means me concretely in this actual situation and asks me, what is the best I can do with it? It's very practical. It's not so difficult. If you want to describe it philosophically, you can make it difficult, of course. But in practice, it is something most people know by themselves. This is what we do to make the best of it. This is so human, so natural. But sometimes when we are shocked by a difficult loss, we forget this knowledge, this capacity, which we have by intuition. And then it is helpful to have somebody who helps people, who helps me, for instance, when I need it, to talk with me, to find this way, because it brings me on the way again. Loss, grief. What is grief? Grief is something which is easily misunderstood, because grief can lead, grief is not pleasurable. Who wants to grieve? Grief is an unpleasant feeling, and at least in Austria, in Europe, in many doctors think they can help people by giving them antidepressants when they are in grief, when they lost their parents or lost a partner, or if when they suffer too much from a divorce or so, then they give them antidepressant for not having to grieve, because grief is unpleasant feeling. Therefore, it is very important to have an understanding of what grief is and how it happens and what is the result of grief, to prevent a mistreatment of grief. Grief, what is the theme? About what are we grieving? It is always a value which we lost, a loss of something to which we are connected, something what we love, somebody whom we love, something which is important for us, something we do not want to lose. And so grief starts when we lose something what we do not want. When our car broke down, this can be a little grief because it means a lot of money and work, etc. It is a loss of a quality. And more, of course, when we lose a relationship, when a friendship breaks apart, when we lose our health, when we get sick, chronically sick, and even more when we lose the relationship to a person who is a loss forever, when somebody dies, when our parents die, and friends die, then these are areas where grief plays an important role. Why is grief necessary? This is now a deeper understanding. The situation is clear. Grief is always around a loss. But what are we doing in grief? After a loss, we are in front of an existential question. The existential question is this life still going to be good? Is it still worthy to continue life? When my partnership breaks apart, I lose so much, a common history, a person who was so close to me. And this loss of a quality means that after this separation from the value, my life is poorer, much poorer. And the question is there still enough capital of values that make my life worthy to continue? And this is the basic question at the beginning of grieving. In grief turns around this question, is it still valuable, my life? And more than this, am I strong enough to continue? Do I have enough power, energy, motivation, inner structure so that I can continue? So, is my life, can this become a good life after all this loss? Living with a cancer is a different life. I cannot go or hiking in the mountains anymore, for instance, or sailing in my boat. Things which I liked so much, which has been my life for decades maybe. Now it doesn't go anymore. And the rest, is that still a life which is valuable to live? This is a big question. And then with such a loss, we are confronted with this existential question. And we have to check, to evaluate if it is valuable enough or not. And if I'm capable enough and strong enough to do it. So the meaning of grief is to connect my life with the new situation. My life changed when I lose something. Of course, if it is a little thing, it is not so important. But even when my car breaks down, it may be a bit of grief because I loved it and so on. It is much more impacting when a pet is dying, for instance. Then we are so connected to that pet. But of course, the own health and the health of others and relationship, the real binding values in our life. When we lose a part of it or many of it, when we lose the job and are unemployed for months and so on, this is a question, is my life still valuable? And I connect with the new situation and ask myself, is there enough life, enough valuable, good life that I'm motivated to continue? This means integration of the loss, start a new life under the new conditions, and looking after having an inner consent to the new condition. How is grief going on? How are we processing, integrating that loss? The first is to accept what is, to let be. Accepting means letting be. Accepting means saying, well, this is the case now. I have to acknowledge that I lost something I don't want. And this is already a big work. Many people fight against the reality and don't acknowledge that it is really the case, that it is no more changeable, that I have to live with that. Let that be what happened. Our task is not to construe our world. Our task is to take part in what is given. And what is given may change. And it may become more or less impacting. Our part is to deal with it. So let it be what happened. And ask yourself, how does this touch me? How does it move me? How is it for me now? And turn towards yourself. We can let us we can let us evaluate by our heart the value of life after loss. When I lost my father, for instance, in that grief, after a certain time, I really started to realize that this is now the fact. For a couple of days, I had the feeling he will come back home like every day. And in the first days, I didn't inwardly realize what I knew cognitively, but by heart, I didn't realize that he will no longer come back, and he will never come back. And then I started to realize, well, this is my new reality now. And how can I live in this new reality? This is the question. And do I really want to live in it? And I didn't know. So I was also upset that this happened, and that this happened to me. And I was depressed at the same time, because I lost so much. And then the next step after realizing what is real, what is there, I started to feel how this is. How is it for me when my father never comes back again? How does it touch me? How does it move me? How does life feel like when he's never coming back again? And so I felt that I lost so much pleasure, so much possibilities to encounter, to discuss, etc. And this will never happen. So I felt I'm really poor now. My rich life turned into a poor life. I lost a very valuable person. So how is that for me? And turning towards myself and taking myself really into my arms and saying, well, really, I'm poor now. And letting it be as it is, this touches me inside. And then what happens is a miracle. We cannot do it, but it happens. We are open for that. We are capable for that. Me, the person within me and my life within me starts to be moved by this contact with my loss, by this turning towards myself, saying, which tells me, you are so poor, really. I see and accept this. And I don't know if I want to live anymore. I'm really not sure. If there is enough hope for a future. And then I started to cry. And crying means there is movement within me. The tears are a sign of life. The tears tell me there is still life within you. And my life tells me, by the tears, I'm still there. Don't give up. I'm with you. It's like the trees after the winter, when they have their first blossoms or their first sheets, green sheets, we say, yeah, that which shows that incredible. The trees look like being dead, and new life comes up. This means having tears. Tears are a sign of a deep inner movement. Life, the movement of life is there and is motivating me, is invading me, is giving me a sign that there is still a relationship to a broader, greater context in which I am, my life. My life is moving me in the tears. Tears prove that there is a connection to life. And the result after a grief is that I know I have lost. That's the fact. But I have regained, deepened my connection to life. But first, life has embraced me. Life showed up being touched by my honest look of what I lost to my wound, my bleeding wound. And then starts this miracle, this being embraced by life, and life takes me into its arms, as to say, and then I can give in and say, yes, I want to connect with my life, to continue. So the result of grief finally is that if the grieving process went through well, then I can say life is still worthy and rewarding to be lived, even after a loss. And the loss can show me in a deeper way the value of life, the connection, the deeper understanding of life, so that we regained our connection to life and have a better feeling, more closeness to life itself. So grief is an active process, is not a pathology. Grief is a personal process where me as a person is checking the value of life. And if grief happens that way, that I come to tears, that I really turn towards myself and let things be, then I'm enriched after a grieving process. So there is hope after loss. There is life after loss. Thank you for this part of the